To finish this section, we are going to understand what are the uses of this topic, passive voice. Well, sometimes we use the passive voice because we don't know or don't want to express who performed the action, who makes the action. So, my car has been stolen. When I say my car has been stolen, I don't know who made the action. I just want to express the action and who suffers it. So, my car has been stolen. We also can use this to make more polite or formal statements. For example, the car hasn't been cleaned. The car hasn't been cleaned is more polite instead of saying, for example, you haven't cleaned my car. In this last example that is active, I'm trying to point out who did not, did not do the action. So it's better, it's more polite, is a little bit more nice to use the passive voice because you don't have to mention who did or did not the action. The car hasn't been cleaned, or hey, the dishes hasn't been washed. I didn't say who didn't do the action. I just say that this action hasn't been done. And number three, to put emphasis on the agent. Maybe I want to show a little bit more who are going to do an action. For example, the new library will be opened by the queen. The new library will be opened by the queen. It could be a little different way to say the queen will open a new library. And it's a little bit more formal. Yeah. Now, you have to practice a little bit more about uses the passive. But we have also a different topic for this class, and it's a little bit easier than the first one. It's relative clauses. What are relative clauses? Relative clauses are those statements that add information about a person or thing. For example, he was the person who told me about the new job. Here, in this sentence, the expression who, I use who to add, to give more information about that person. So he was the person who told me about the new job. Or these are the high heels that I was looking for. These are the high heels that I was looking for. In this case, I want to give an extra information that is not necessary in the sentence, but I want to give that. I want to say it. So I use that. We use who and that to introduce a relative clause and add additional information, as in the examples I just mentioned. We use who to introduce information about the person. He was the one who won the race. Or I use that to give more information about a person or a thing. It's more common for things, but we can also use it for people. There is the runner that won the race, or there is the runner who won the race. Now, in this part of the class, I need you to try to understand when you can use who or when you need to use that. Sometimes you can omit who or that when it's not the subject, when it's not necessary. Yeah, and in this case, when it is not necessary, when it's not the subject of the verb that follows or the next part of the sentence. For example, the photos we took that day are hanging on the kitchen wall. Another way to say it is the photos that we took that day are hanging on the kitchen wall. Both are correct, but in this case that is not necessary. Why? Because we is the subject of the verb of taking the photos, so that is not necessary. In this next sentence that starts with we is the subject, is who develops the action, so that is not necessary. But we cannot omit who or that when it is the subject of the verb that follows. In this type of sentences, we have two parts. It's like an embedded sentence that has two sentences in only one. The first part, you are talking about somebody or something, and the other part is additional information about the first one. But when in the second section, who or that is the subject of the action, you cannot take it out. You just need it to complete the sentence. But when you have a different subject in this second sentence, you is who or that is not necessary. For example, it was a special moment that will stay with me forever. In this second section, will stay is the action. But is there any subject or any other person or name before will different from that? No. So in this case, you cannot omit that situation. Let's practice a little bit. I told you this was a little bit easier. I need you to complete these sentences with who or that. An object is very important to me. And remember, in this case, we are talking about an object. So I cannot use who. I use that. An object that is very important to me. Number two, a movie or TV show I have seen recently. A friend I have spoken to today. In this case, in number three, we are talking about a person that is my friend. So, a friend who I have spoken to today. Now, listen or read these sentences, next sentences, and try to complete them with who or that. 4. A person taught me how to do something. A member of my family lives far away. 6. A thing I have to do today. Now, when you complete these sentences, please try to imagine or identify in which sentences who or that is necessary to complete the expression, and also in which sentences who or that is not necessary. Think about it. And to finish this section, something very important, a final goal. All this lesson is important for you because you can improve your production, your writing and speaking activity. This is not mandatory, but you can use it to improve your writing and your speaking skills. Follow these steps in order to make a new task for you, and this I hope will help you with your English learning. See you. Bye bye.